All right, so I'll begin. So, good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank you, especially Mridu ma'am, for letting me present my views on a topic which is of much relevance in present time. So, it is Indian values and ethos, classroom conduct and behavior. So, you might be wondering that in an FDP of artificial intelligence, why are we actually talking about Indian ethos and the values here? So if I start talking about artificial intelligence, so it itself is a value-laden term, and which means that it actually talks about or works for the betterment of the society. I'll give you one example. Obviously, all of you know that. So disease diagnosis, for example, bettering the services, for instance, customer services. So the positives which are involved when we talk about artificial intelligence. But on the other hand, artificial intelligence has also been questioned because of the kind of ethics that are involved with it. So there could be situations wherein it may result in some kind of a bias towards a section of the society. It may result in some kind of a chaos as well. When I say the word chaos, for instance, people may lose their jobs because of if you introduce artificial intelligence in every sector. So there are positives and negatives involved in this particular field. But however, I'm not going to enter into that particular domain. But what I'll be actually speaking about is that somebody who is in this field as a researcher, or somebody who is teaching this topic as a faculty, as an academician, as an educationist, must also have. Okay, thank you. So what exactly I'll be focusing upon is that, the importance of values when it comes to teaching, when it comes to being an educationist. All right. So why values are important for any human being who is actually part of any kind of a field. Doctor, for instance, a lawyer, for instance, an engineer, for example. So we'll be talking about that. Just to give you a brief, introduction to what I'll be talking about is, so we know that our society is actually progressing. We are actually tagged as a developing country, wherein we are working on our economics, we are working on our politics and the social aspects so that our society improves, moves towards the betterment. But what has happened in the process is that because of, not getting into the critical understanding or analysis of how these developmental processes are happening, so a lot of values are actually getting compromised. Okay, for instance, to earn money or to generate profit. So what happens in this process is that a lot of values get compromised, and there are many sections of society which actually get impacted. So just to give you an idea about the structure of the presentation, so I'll first, like to talk about what exactly Indian ethos or values are. So these concepts are to be understood if we need to, inculcate it in our behavior and then influence the students whom we are actually going to interact with or teach. Then another important aspect of this presentation is that the sources of these values, from where do these values actually come? So even when I teach in the classroom, so lot many times the student asks me this particular question that values are out there, and we had been trained, taught about this since our very childhood. So why now this particular course, and why we need to speak about these values? So I'll let you know that why these are crucial to be discussed, to be talked about, and to be inculcated, because these may change over the period of time as well. Then third section would be on human values and the Indian education system. Why I bring in this particular section is because we are now trying to implement National Education Policy 2020, and introducing Indian values amongst the students is one of the prime area that it focuses upon. Then I will talk about values and the changing context. So we know the generation gap also has reduced. So earlier it used to be 25 to 30 years. Now it has narrowed down to, researchers say, 5 years. So which means that there is a difference of opinion, could be difference of opinion on any particular problem. So values change. Then the role of the teacher and the code of conduct, which is very important area in this particular for this particular discussion. So if I talk about Indian ethos and values, so what exactly ethos basically means? So it's a Greek word which basically means custom or character. All right. So this term was actually introduced by Aristotle. He was a Greek philosopher. And just imagine that since ancient times, we had, have been talking about values. Why? Because we became gregarious. We started living in communities or societies, and to maintain an order in the society, certain, beliefs, practices became important. And what basically Aristotle focused upon was a man's character or a woman's character or personality, especially to strike a balance between the passion, all right, and maintaining caution as well. All right. So, for instance, somebody might be wanting to become a millionaire. All right. But then there should be a caution as well involved in that, wherein this person may get into malpractices just to earn the profit. All right. But there should be caution. You should get passionate about things, but with the caution. When we talk about the present times, in the present times, the meaning has changed a bit. When we say ethos, so ethos basically means the practices and values that basically distinguish an organization, a group, or a nation for that matter. Fine. So when I say that they are distinguished, for example, you might have heard of the global south and the global north. So when I say global north, so it basically involves the developed countries, so US and the European countries, for instance. When I say global south, so it's the developing countries, so the African continent and Asia, for instance. Now the thing is that the kind of values or ethos that these two, regions of the globe had, those are different. So if I talk about the global north, for instance, so what are the qualities, traits that they basically focus upon, or what kind of a society they basically expect? So they are, focused more towards the individualistic aspect of a human being. When we talk about global south, which means if I give you an example of India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, so what these countries basically focus upon, they talk about collectivism. We are more bothered about our families. We are more concerned about our communities, for instance, because these are the sources through which we create or generate our identity. Identity is very crucial for us, but the collectivist identity is very important. Any decision, for example, you make in your life could be related to your education or your profession. So family comes into the picture. But when I talk about global south, so the individual passion is given much more importance than the collectivist interests or passion. One positive thing about global north is that they talk about the rights of an individual. Here the debates are going on, progressing, but here we talk about group rights more compared to the individual rights. So ethos. So why I brought in these examples, so that you understand that what exactly ethos mean in the contemporary times. So you can see that I've put practices or values. All right, when I'm talking about ethos, so we need to understand that what values exactly are. So since your school days, you must have been taught morals, values, such bolo, jhoot mat bolo, badon ki respect karo, don't argue with your elders. There are a lot of things which have been told to you. So basically, when we talk about values, we are talking about the principles, the ideals, the beliefs, the practices that you have, the fundamental convictions, or the standards of life, which act as a general guide to your behavior or a reference point in decision making. So I have highlighted decision making. So many a times, individuals, they get confused between values and morals and ethics. Now, when I say values, basically they help us make a decision, take a decision, whether to go for it or not opt for it. An engineer, civil engineer, for example. So he may be knowing that if he can compromise with the quality of the concrete material which has been used, all right, he will earn a lot of profit. But the thing is that values will let him know that this decision making which he's getting involved in, what kind of repercussions or consequences it may have for the society. So recent episode that happened in Gujarat, for example. But individuals were also equally responsible. So many people on a single bridge, just imagine. So that is also questionable. Anyhow, I won't get into that. Now the thing is that again there are different kinds of values. We need to understand these values also a bit. So you can say intellectual values. So these basically are talking about the cognitive aspect of any human being. So the knowledge, critical thinking, inquiry, investigation. So most of you are researchers and faculty. So you know that how important critical thinking is, analysis is, and similarly the divergent and convergent thinking. So some nations, for instance, they promote divergent thinking, right? So when I say divergent thinking, so it is a value again of that particular region or a society or a section wherein they basically want creativity to take place. All right. So the same laws, fundamental principles which are there, you are not supposed to experiment with that. You are given the freedom to basically be flexible, experiment, be creative, be innovative. All right. That is divergent thinking. When I say convergent, so you have already established laws based on which you will follow the straight path. All right. So one kind of a value, then moral values. We know that we are asked to be loyal to the organizations that we work for. We need to have self-control, honesty, sincerity, patriotism. I need not explain these. Then the personal values. Now, personal values may vary. I am not saying that these are the universal values, but they may vary. Somebody wants to become a millionaire. Somebody doesn't want to do that. So we have a lot of examples. For example, examples wherein people are working as social workers in different fields. So you might have heard of Kailash Satyarthi. You might have heard of Sanjit Roy, who is running Barefoot College in India, in Afghanistan, and now he has. I mean, the organization is scattered across the entire globe. So these people do not work with the value of becoming rich, but working for the society. Then social values. So good manners, culture, respect, cooperation, and there are many other examples. So if I talk about specifically the ancient Indian values that we've had, so it focused upon spirituality, it talked about simplicity, it talked about pursuit of truth, dignity of labor, universal tolerance, and acceptance. So present times again, see, some of the values have remained intact, or we have been talking about that. So when I say acceptance, so I put inclusivity. So we have been talking about inclusion and exclusion. So it was there that time as well, which has in a way changed. The concept might have changed, but inclusion, which means that people from different socioeconomic backgrounds must be part of the growth and developmental progress or of a particular nation or a country. Nobody should be left out from the drawing the benefits from whatever changes that have been happening. And then the emphasis during the ancient times was on value education. They were not churning out engineers or doctors during that period. If you could recall, if you have seen the movies and read in scriptures, so Gurukul, for instance. So that period they were basically focusing on creating a valued human being. So cultural, moral, ethical, spiritual growth of an individual was considered to be very important across various religions, across various communities. Now, the thing is that I will not get into that because then the discussion will go on and on. I am not going to do that, but I will talk more about the recent history, recent past. So India and the rest of the subcontinent and other parts of the globe have actually had a colonial past. We share a common history. And if you talk about Africa also, for instance, the continent, so culturally, in a way, we are similar. Socio-economically also, we are similar. We have common problems and issues that we had been working on, maybe because of the colonial past that we've had, the history that we have shared together. But what has happened is that because we were colonized, so a lot of our resources were extracted, we were exploited, that we all know. But it also introduced a lot of other social concepts or terms or practices that did change our society, influence our society, both in positive and negative manner. So westernization, for example. So what happened is post-independence, and because we wanted to get into that race of becoming a developed nation, a progressive nation, so a lot of concepts from abroad, from other nations were also imbibed, taken, maybe because of without much thought. So as I've said, both positives and negatives of colonization, but anyhow. So now the thing is that post-independence, so we've had, and pre-independence also, we had a lot of stalwarts, important people in India who had been working in obviously to get independence, gain independence, but other aspects of the society as well. Education, for instance, is one sector. I've mentioned only 4 names here, but there are number of people who have made immense contribution towards the betterment of our society. I've just mentioned Mahatma Gandhi, Rabindranath Tagore, Aurobindo, and Dr. Zakir Hussain. I'll talk about them later, but before I do that, so I had been mentioning that I will be talking about sources of values. It's very crucial to know actually from where these values come. Usually it happens that when you start telling youngsters that बड़ों का आदर करो, respect करो, values को intact रखो, सच बोलो, greedy मत हो जाओ, they do get little, क्योंकि since childhood, as I've said, they've been told number of times what to do and what not to do. But as I had mentioned that there is generation gap. So from both the sides, when I say the elders in a family and when I say the children of the family, all right, or the youth who are there in the family, so there should be mutual respect. We should need to understand the kind of differences that might be there. So families actually become a source through which a child, when he's born, these values are being imbibed or introduced to him. Then peer group. Now peer group is very important for any individual because आपको बोला जाता है ना, you are known by the company you keep. Very common statement, अच्छे दोस्त बनाओ and this and that. So again, the family is telling you that. But it does have an influence on you. So somebody who is ambitious, is focused, is principled, so definitely you're going to learn some positive values from that person. Somebody who is confused, you know that what kind of a chaos that might also result. So peer group is very important for you. Then the societal institutions. This is again, these are very powerful institutions which can have immense, control over you, or they may train you into doing something good as well. So when I say social institutions or societal institutions, I'm again talking about family, your education institutions, religion, marriage, all right, kinship. Kinship is the blood relations that you have. So these also have very crucial role to play when it comes to introducing values. But here the last one, teachers or the academics or the educationists are the most important. And I'm not saying that family is not important or the peer group is not important, but teachers are the most important influencers when it comes to learning values or introducing values amongst the students. So many times this question is posed that who is your role model? So mostly, or people who have inspired you. So mostly the responses come that teachers, which could be from your school grade. For instance, when I was in my nursery class, still I cannot forget Mrs. Kapoor. I don't know her first name, but Mrs. Kapoor I could not forget. I didn't want to get promoted into the next class, LKG. I didn't want to go because the kind of impact she had on me, the kind of control that she had over her expressions, to the way she actually dealt with the younger kids. So immense impression she cast on me. I rather should say spell, and I cannot forget that lady. All right. So teachers are very important because I think when you turn 3 or 4 max, so I think most of the quality time actually you're spending with the teacher, wherein the maximum learning is happening about the entire globe. Parents, obviously, they are teaching you. Peer group also is doing that. But teachers, all right. So all quality education, teaching, preaching, whatever, uh, with regards to different fields is being done by the teacher. So they have an immense role. So amongst you, we might be having teachers, we might be having researchers who are already, teaching, taking certain classes here. So knowing that why a teacher is held a high regard in our society, very important. And what is the role of a teacher when you get into these profession, academics, or becoming an educationist. So now I'll come back to the stalwarts. So we've known the sources of values. Now the thing is that teachers are very crucial, very important. And when I talk about these stalwarts, so their entire focus was actually on the educationists or the education system in India. So if I talk about Gandhiji, so Gandhiji basically he said that education is that which draws out and stimulates the spiritual, intellectual, and physical faculties of children. Faculties ka matlab power bhi hota hai. So which means the physical power of any children. So education is so crucial because holistic development, overall development of any child. This is what Gandhiji meant by that. So when we talk about Tagore, so for him, creating a system of education aimed at promoting international cooperation and creating global citizens. So for Rabindranath Tagore, bringing the global interests of an individual were important. So a globalized village, we use this term in the present time. So he wanted to have global citizens so that the harmony could be maintained. If you look at the globe, the world around us, we know that there are a number of differences which exist, all right, which may result in some kind of a conflict. So he wanted that to happen. If we talk about Aurobindo, so for him, task of education is to lead the student to discover for himself the aim of life and the specific role that he himself has to play in it. So many times students are confused that, what they want to achieve in life, what they want to do. Decision making is one area. They do not want to get into a particular field, but because family asked, so they are doing it. So confused individual. So here the thing was that the student has to know that what exactly he himself is, what he exactly wants. So knowing your own self, very important. If you know your own self, a lot of your problems, issues are resolved. So if I talk about Dr. Zakir, so for him, education must be developed in balance, where the abilities, capabilities should be formed in right proportions. Okay. So both your abilities, capabilities, passions, interests, for example. So that is why many, almost all the educational institutes, they promote cultural activities to happen in the institute. So here also we have a lot of clubs who actually try to bring out the talent that a student may have. So to strike a balance between both. Now the point here is that all these four stalwarts and others, they had been they actually believed in critical traditionalism. So which means that self-correcting mechanism. So they accepted that our customs do have certain issues and problems. Obviously there are a lot of positives involved, but there are certain issues which we need to address so that the generation that comes is not actually influenced by those negatives that exist in our society. So, according to them, who were the important people who could actually do that? So those were the educationists, teachers. So very important. Now I'll talk about human values and the Indian education system. So obviously these stalwarts and other people had been working in this particular area to revive the education system that we have, or introduce more innovative concepts and understandings in teaching the children or the students. So another movement that had been happening during the 19th century was revivalism, all right, which is happening now also with the national education policy. So which meant that the ancient customs, traditions, beliefs, practices that we had that brought in good into the society, all right, should actually be incorporated, promoted, all right. So what basically it meant was a reawakening, a reinterpretation in the light of the ancient wisdom, all right. So truth, for instance, seeking truth, for instance, being non-violent, for example, cooperation, for instance, thinking about the development of your entire community. These have been ancient values that have existed. So they wanted that this reawakening should happen. All right. Then ancient noble values and the medium is modern means of teaching and communication. So because see, now the point here is that we cannot actually go back to a period wherein the Gurukul system was happening. So it will not happen because of the social economic conditions of the present times. We have a lot of students, for instance, one branch, 100 students. So Gurukul system may not work here. But the thing is that we have to revamp, change our systems so that we meet the expectations of the students and churn out the best individuals out of the processes that happen in an education system. So considering the modern means of teaching, education, and then the values which existed during those times, which are relevant in present times as well, those have to be incorporated. And then because this holds in, as I've said earlier also, present times very important. Why? Because we have a lot of problems, socio-economic, cultural, emotional, ethical problems that exist. And then there are anxieties involved because you are expected to have higher CPI. The students are expected to have higher CPI, all right, produce the best of the results, publish papers. So there are a lot of pressures involved, competition, whether you will get a job or not. All right, so a lot of anxieties as well because of the kind of competition which is there in the society. So nationally, globally, and then various international organizations as well, who have been actually researching, trying to find out that how change can be brought about. So UNESCO, for example. So now, how this international organization basically, understands that what education is. So it says that it includes all the processes that develops human ability and behavior. So if we go by the dictionary meaning of it, so education is the act or process of importing or acquiring general knowledge, developing the powers of reasoning and judgment. So when I started, I'd said that values means decision making. So education should be such wherein you actually can analyze, you actually can reason, and you can make a judgment about, you know, the opportunities that you have and the things that you want to do in your life. So the basic thing is that teachers or the educationists should understand that what kind of a dilemma or confusion or conflict a student might be going through, which has to be resolved. I'll tell you that how a teacher can actually do that in later slides. So, if I talk about modern education in India, so the Indian culture has a very important role to play because it focuses on learners' overall development, which we had been talking about, or the holistic development of any individual. All right. Now, see, modern education, obviously, as I've said, we cannot say that we will just incorporate or imbibe or implement the ancient values that we've had. But modern education has to happen because there has been so much of technological advancement. Today, your FDP is all about artificial intelligence. So we cannot just stick back, sit and just follow whatever had happened in the ancient times. We need to, analyze the benefits and the issues involved with modern education so that we can have the best of it. Now, the good points about modern education is that it promotes scientific behavior. All right. It promotes democratic thoughts because you are talking about your rights. All right. You are talking about the society, that how you can actually be play an important role in that. So there are a lot of positives involved, but I'll here because we are talking about values and the kind of crisis that we are facing. So modern education may also dissociate you from the cultural roots that you had. All right. So India is known as had been known as has been known and still is being known as a rural economy. But and I would not be wrong to mention this that we must have had our ancestors, okay, yeah, relatives who have been into farming. But now what has happened? You'll find that in Bihar, for instance, that there are villages wherein you'll find all the villages are most of the villages are being occupied only by the female members of the family. All the men have left to look for labor, to look for work, and this particular culture or the economic traditional economy of being into farming, for instance, is slowly dying because of various reasons involved. So somewhere it is disassociating us as well. So in modern education, the revival of Indian values is very important. All right, and which has been happening as well. Many education institutes do that. They introduce physical health, all right, through various sports. Then socializing, for instance. Now socialization or socializing. I hope you understand this term, wherein the family, the society actually trains you into being a good human being. All right, or how to conduct yourself in a group or in a community or amongst people or amongst strangers, for instance. And what socializing basically does is that it actually brings in some kind of a harmony. All right, if your family would not have trained you into speaking to other people, if an educational institute, you have communication, I mean, we have communication classes for students, we have personality development classes for students. What exactly are we doing? We are actually training them to deal with people in groups, collectives, communities. Just imagine a situation wherein this process is not happening, and this individual has to straight away go out and meet people or work for an organization. He'll be a misfit. So very important. Then academic performances and self-awareness. All right, so crucial. Now, if I talk about national education policy, so basically NEP 2020, it talks about revamping the education system. If you have gone through it, so you know that it talks about more choices to be given to the students actually. Now, this is again the values that we had been talking about: knowing yourself, knowing about your interests, your passions. All right, decision making, for instance. So this basically is going to do that. So transforming. I'm hopeful that it will happen if implemented thoroughly. Now, what it does is that it talks about ethical reasoning, talks about traditional Indian values, and then various other values that have existed. For example, ahimsa to swachhata, satya, nishkam, karma, shanti, sacrifice, tolerance, diversity, pluralism, and then many other traits. So the other important thing which it talks about is to create a knowledge-based society. So I hope you understand that when I say knowledge-based society, so what exactly we are meaning. So you have the information with you. There had been times wherein the individuals did not actually had access to information. But now just imagine that through internet, for example, you have all access to all acts that are there for you. The rights that you have, how the government has framed various policies so that your rights could be protected. You can grow as a human being or as a professional as well. So analysis. So if you have the information, you can analyze and do something good to the society. So a knowledge-based society, which means that people are educated, learned, and they know what is happening around them, they have all the information, is very crucial. Then the knowledge that the educationists are creating, it should be relatable, it should be relevant, interesting, and effective. So the teacher, which means an educationist, which means has to continuously, work, analyze that what could be the demands, interests, what new methods, techniques he must or she must introduce in the classroom so that the interest of the student is kept alive. So values and the changing context. So I've already mentioned that now we are a global village. Westernization to ho gaya, Sanskritization bhi ho gaya, and now the borders also in a way have diluted. I'm not talking about the actual borders, but the way you can interact with anybody in US. So you know that it has become very easy, very convenient. You can travel also easily. You can share your culture, your thoughts, beliefs, research, which you are doing very easily, conveniently. So the thing we need to understand here is that we cannot, stick to those old ancient values, but some, flexibility required. But we do need to have those values also with us. Why? Because see, that if I talk about US, so from South Asia, there are so many software engineers to people from other fields who actually move out, and they are ready to accept them. Why? It is all because of the kind of values that Indian workforce holds. All right, they know that they are hardworking. All right, and they know they are intelligent. They know that they are loyal. All right, so that is why they are ready to hire that workforce. So the identity, the values that the Indian workforce and the other South Asians as well have. All right, so they are ready to actually take them. So we need to somewhere understand this particular thing, which doesn't mean that we should forget about our own selves, which is very important. So let the students know that what kind of values we need to have, and then grow also as a human being in this globalized world to strike a balance. For instance, now here, one thing for the prospective teachers, faculty, and those who are the faculty. So one narrative could be of help here, which is called humanism. All right. So earlier, if you would have interacted with your elders, so they would tell you that how strict the teachers used to be with us uh, when it came to delivering the lecture. So my dad used to tell me that the teacher used to bring a stick along with him, and he would keep the stick on the table, his table, so that a fear is created amongst the students, so that there is no mischief, no misconduct, and he will deliver his lecture, may not encourage students to ask a question. And we've experienced also some teachers encouraged us to ask as many questions as possible, but then there were certain teachers who would get offended if you'll ask them a question. I remember one teacher of ours leaving the classroom because we asked him to repeat what he said, because he asked us to write down the notes. So with high speed he was actually speaking, and we could not do that. Asked, and he got annoyed and he left. But then there were other teachers who actually encouraged us to get into various extracurricular activities. So one of the teachers, just imagine, no teacher would do that, that too from a science stream. So he let us go for MCC camps. When we came back, he said, your practicals will happen later. Happened, and we got good marks. Might not have had happened in other cases. So the thing is that, see, humanism. So what humanism basically talks about is the essential goodness of children or the young. Essential goodness means that they are very important for any society. Fine. So this young generation is, somebody who will actually move towards or lead this nation towards progress and growth and development. So very crucial, very important. Then see, they believe that humans have free will, moral conscience, and ability to reason. So, which means in my class, I tell that no answer is wrong. All right, this is what you actually have understood. This could be because of the prior experience that you have had. So I may ask a student कि अपनी पूरी जिंदगी सिर्फ सच बोलना. He might not get into doing that. Why? Because he may have had experiences which have not been good while doing that process. He may not do that. All right. So everybody has an ability to reason or judge or take a decision. So we cannot consider that he is of no good and he cannot do that. We cannot do that. This is what humanism actually talks about, and it talks about healthy self-concept, awareness of psychological needs, helping students to strive to be all that they can. That they are, the concepts that are important to them. So psychological needs of the students as well. All right. So see, earlier we do that. We need to sympathize with people. So sympathy apna show karna chahiye. No, it's not sympathy which is important when it comes to students. It's empathy actually which is important. So there is a difference between these two concepts. So when I say sympathy, it is fine. Okay, you are late. Why are you late? Because I got stuck in the traffic, or I did not have breakfast. I did not. Second day again, the student comes to the classroom. Again, he's late. Again, the teacher asks, "Why were you late?" or "Why are you late?" And again, the student tells the teacher that I did not have breakfast. Okay, so something I had to do, and so I am late. So teacher is restricting only till that. Ki, why are you late? You are marked absent. But the teacher is supposed to be empathetic to the student and ask, go beyond that, the one sentence which he has told, that why actually this is happening on a repeated basis. All right. So the student may not be having hostel accommodation. So he's cooking for himself. Gas khatam ho gaya. Sabzi lana hai. There are tons of other problems which might be there. So students, they are not uniform. Their needs are not uniform. All right. Their requirements are not. Their talents, aptitudes, attitudes, intelligence, not the same. So you cannot expect the same result, everybody to have 9.6 CPI or 10. No, you cannot. So somebody might be a critical thinker. Somebody might be a good writer. Somebody could be a good analyst. So you have to see. All right. And then the kind of background, socioeconomic backgrounds are different, aspirations are different. So psychological needs teacher. This is the role of an academician or a educationist or a teacher, not of the student. Obviously, he has or she has these requirements. Now, again, the teachers need to build, an atmosphere or an environment which is threat-free, which talks about the emotional well-being of the student, which encourages learning experiences or processes and results in self-fulfillment. Now, these are very heavy words, and it is tough for a teacher also if there is a strength of 100 students sitting in front of you. This is tough, but at least the teacher can try for it. So amongst those 100, 30 may not be having any issue when it comes to this, but then there might be 5 who are, their emotional well-being is not okay and needs to be addressed. So it is the role of the teacher to actually identify, and a teacher can do that. We know, because when we take classes, so teachers can actually look at the faces, they can understand, okay, that what exactly is happening. So the thing is that you have to be empathetic towards the students, create an environment which is still, surprisingly, it happens that in very good academic institutions as well, the student feels threatened or is scared to actually ask a question to the faculty. Or if the faculty has said, ki, fine, tomorrow you come up with the presentation ready. All right. And this boy cannot or the girl cannot. He or she will not have the guts to actually say that. All right. But we should not actually do that because we are moving somewhere else. Fine. So if I talk about the, various principles of humanism. So as I mentioned, the student should actually be able to choose what they want to learn. NEP is talking about that. So they can pick courses from a variety of options that they have. The goal of education should be to foster students' desire to learn and teach them how to learn. All right. Then self-evaluation is meaningful here. So obviously we have a system set up wherein marks examination will take place, marks would be assigned. That is fine, that is required. How will you actually assess those 100 students? But this self-assessment is also very important. So ways should be devised wherein that can be done by the individual student himself, and not that you only, the faculty only assessing the student. This is a one-way process happening, or so this game will actually not churn out much benefits. Then the humanistic educators, basically they believe both in the feelings and knowledge, that these are important effective domains which I've been talking about. So when we say effective, it is all about the emotions, very important. Fine. So cognitive growth important. So cognitive का मतलब हम mind की बात कर रहे हैं. You need to learn concepts, you need to learn the theories which are there in the discipline. But then this affective domain is also very important. Emotional growth of a person is very important. You have to be expressive. You cannot tell, for instance, in our society, number of times this statement is used that ladke rote nahi. All right. So just imagine that how biased this one statement is, that ladke rote nahi. So the boys are also actually not expected to express themselves. Agar emotionally they are disturbed, they can't do that. Boy gets injured and he's being told कि तुम लड़के हो, लड़के रोते नहीं. Fine. How can you expect a 6-year-old child to actually not cry? A boy, I'm talking about. Girls have their own issues, own concerns. Mostly the society talks about that more, but this side, the other divide, is left out. So concerns hai wahan pe. So effective domain, please, I mean, I try to do that because I've also learned over the period of time, very important. We need to actually build the confidence of a student. So in one of the girls in one of the branches, she would sit in the corner, will not speak to any of the students, and she had self-doubts, I could understand. I asked her to deliver a presentation, and she said, ma'am, can I give the presentation alone, just to you and not the rest of the class? Because she had self-doubts when it comes to stage fear. She had stage fear. And she thought that students will mock her, make fun of her. But opposite happened. The students actually admired her. So students need, we need to identify those students who actually need some help, some push actually, so that this basically can happen. And as I've said, unthreatening environment is very crucial. Now the role of teachers and the code of conduct. Now, since our childhood also, we are told that practice what you preach. तो सिर्फ बताना ही नहीं है कि क्या करना है और क्या नहीं करना है, खुद से भी करना. So if I'm here sitting and telling you that what a teacher is supposed to do, I should also practice that, because see, this verbal thing may not have much impact on you, but what I've been practicing, fine, will have greater impact than what I am talking about. For instance, movie stars, for example. So we admire a particular movie star. So Shah Rukh Khan किसी को पसंद है तो वो शाहरुख खान की तरह hair style रख लेगा. All right, symbolic representation of an individual very becomes important than what his thought process is. Shah Rukh Khan ka thought process bhi bahut acha hai. It's not that, but I'm just giving you one example. So see the expressions. I'll tell you, a teacher, for example, body language is very crucial for a teacher. So I told you this example wherein the teacher would enter the class with a stick. Just imagine the kind of impression it would cast. A teacher comes with a smiling face. I remember when I was in my 11th grade, I had changed the school, and there was one English teacher, retired from a government school, and then he joined this private school, elderly fellow. So he'll enter the classroom with a broad smile, and the students would say, "Aao," fine, to the teacher. Synchronized manner mein, boys obviously they would do this, ki "Aao." All right, he will not feel bad. Like a grandfather, he'll enter the classroom and beautiful lectures he'll give. And everybody used to. So body language is so crucial. If you have an offensive body language, a teacher, or you are stooping, for example, students understand कि ये तो डरा हुआ है, तो इसको और डराओ. Our classmates have also done that. So my classmates once even made a teacher cry. All right, because she was scared. First lecture of her life, and they did that to her. So you need to have a confident body language. You need to look at all the students, because it's not just one student that you are interacting with, but you have to connect with the students. All right, very important. So body language is very important. Now the thing is that The teachers also, they should know that how they should, I mean, in which category they should actually, put themselves. So I have categorized here 3. Complaining teacher. The teacher always says, ये तो नालायक बच्चे हैं, ये तो कुछ नहीं कर सकते, ये पढ़ नहीं रहे हैं, assignment नहीं कर रहे हैं, homework नहीं कर रहे हैं, late आते हैं, this and that. Just imagine, we all know this happens on a regular basis, regular affair, right? So what kind of, impression are you casting on the students? So complaining teacher, which category you belong to? Explaining teacher. So he'll just come, explain the concept, go. Then there is another third category of teacher, which we should actually try to be, inspiring teacher, wherein you are facilitating that session or the discussion that is happening, and not just coming and delivering and going. So creativity, fun, for instance. So I know I've had teachers. So a fun element, humor. Classes were 2.5 hours continuous. We didn't have any problems. All right. So we've had, and unpredictability in learning. वो होता है ना कि स्टूडेंट्स को पहले से बता दो कि उन्होंने आज क्या करना है, वो भी इंपॉर्टेंट है. But then this element of unpredictability, that they were not prepared for it. All right. And something new comes in. Interest of the student. So that's important. Now the thing is that this holistic development basically teaches how they can, focus on it or aspire for it. So now, because I'm talking about humanism here, humanistic education. So based on that, we need to promote lectures and debates to happen, discussions to happen. Artificial intelligence, for instance, should not be all about what exactly it is, what concept is, in which discipline it can be applied, implemented, but you should go beyond. All right. Encourage students to talk about it. They may have, a lot of information related to it, the ethics and values that we are talking about, how it may impact the society, what kind of growth we need when we in this field when it comes to India and other things. So it helps create independent thinking. We need to do that. Student self-esteem, again, we've spoken about that, very important. So I give you one example that how that self-esteem can actually be built without directly telling the student कि तुमको अपना थोड़ा confidence बढ़ाना है. So ये बोलने पे confidence नहीं बढ़ेगा. You have to think that how you can actually do that with that student. All right. Same case I had. I'm not trying to tell here that how good a teacher I am. I'm not. I'm just learning. But one student there used to happen in one of the branches. Used to sit again in a corner, will not speak, but immense potential he had. Would never smile. But then certain tasks were introduced to him, which actually I too felt that he took it in a different direction, but did work on him. So the teachers need to experiment with that. Then balance praise and no blame. Now praise also, it is said that praise karo bacche ka and he gets encouraged more. No, could go in a different direction as well. So if he prepares a good assignment and I offer him a chocolate, next time when he comes prepared with a good assignment, he'll again expect for a chocolate. And if I do not do that, he may get disappointed. So I need to see that how actually I get into that process of praising the student as well, but no blame. As I've said, we are not supposed to tell the student कि तुम्हारा answer बिल्कुल गलत है, तुमको कुछ नहीं आता है. No, he may be having a different angle to think about that. Teacher should act as a facilitator, which I've told you. Let them also share their knowledge and experiences. Then in this humanistic development, because we are talking about holistic development of the students, so skills, attitudes need to be developed, looked at, and discipline to be introduced amongst the class. But again, through a balanced, not that stick wala rule should not happen, and it doesn't happen also, but verbally also. Teachers need to be very careful. So I think this is the last slide. You must be tired. So now the thing is that now teachers, so they have a lot of responsibilities actually, and I'm only focusing on being the teachers, that's it. But administratively, at the college level, university level, they are doing tons of other things as well, research and other things. I'm not going into that, but I'm just talking about the teacher. So what this teacher is supposed to do. So his own conduct and demeanor, very important. So as I've told you, body language. All right, I can't expect a student to walk straight, chin up, if I'm not doing it myself. I can't do that. So a student has to learn it from me. I need to be respectful to the student, no matter what he has done. All right, if I'm myself disrespectful towards a student, no matter what I say, what sermons I give, that are not going to happen. Then manage private affairs in a manner consistent with the dignity of the profession. So my personal affairs should not overpower my professional domain. That should not happen. Express free and frank opinion. That should happen, and which could be for the welfare of the students. So if I know that my students, their rights might be violated or they're not getting what they deserve, if it is not happening, I should speak up for what basically should happen in a class or what they um, require. Then assisting, advising, and counseling students, very important. So most of the educational institutes, it's a requirement that they should have counselors in their fine. But one counselor or two counselors and 4,000 students, it's a tough task. One student might be, very comfortable, convenient speaking his thoughts with you. Fine. So you have to be a good counselor. A teacher in today's time is not supposed to just stand, deliver lectures, and go, and that's it. Matter ends. No. So, but it's a tough task. As I've said, 100 to more students sitting in one branch, tough. But then that's the duty of a teacher. All right, and then the extra activities. So now I specifically talk about teachers and the students. So, and I'm not talking from the perspective of the teachers here, but I'm talking from the perspectives of the students. So the dignity of a student is to be maintained perfectly. So I remember that one of a child, hardly 4 years of age, and the teacher starts talking about the issues that the child had in front of the child. And it has serious impact because I'm working in the area of children's rights as well. So a bit of knowledge I have on it. So seriously impact. So I had to tell the teacher that let her go. All right. Then you speak about what issues the child has. If you're doing it in front of the child, so this child knows that, she considers me to be somebody who is not intelligent, is not doing good, fine, not meeting the expectations, और वो उसको demoralize कर देगा बजाय उसको और अच्छा करने के. So his dignity is to be maintained. You have to deal justly and impartially, and it happens because teachers are also human beings, that you might be biased towards a particular student, but being a teacher, you are not supposed to do that. All right, so you need to be just, impartial towards all students that you have. Then recognize the differences in aptitudes, interests, passions, capabilities. Again, as I've said, so it is again teachers' responsibility to do that. Encourage students, inculcate scientific outlook, then being affectionate, encourage cooperation, timelessness, prompt feedback, involvement. Now, many times it happens, I've also gone through this process wherein you had the idea, you wanted to share, but again because of the inhibitions, वो डर रहता है कि शायद मैं गलत ना हो, तो student बोलते नहीं, right? So it is again the sole responsibility of the teacher to actually do that, encourage students to speak. All right, and just imagine a situation wherein only one human being considers that he is the sole only person who actually has the entire understanding of this particular issue, और वही बोल रहा है, वही बोल रहा है. But imagine a situation wherein 70 people sitting in front of you, and chalo 70 nahi bol rahe, but 30 are involving, participating. Just imagine that what kind of results it will come up with, what kind of solutions it may offer. So one of the students, he once approached me and he said that in my placement, so the board was again बार बार वो मुझे बोल रहे थे, and what else, what else. So they gave him a problem, and so what else, what else. So he said, I think my interview didn't go well. They were not satisfied with my answer. So I told him that why do you not look at it from a different perspective? He might be actually trying to check that what is your range, how far can you go, how many solutions can you actually offer. So you may have come up with 3 wonderful solutions. So he wanted to check what your capacity is, what your capabilities are. So 4th solution, 5th solution to one single problem, right? So they are trying to analyze you as a problem solver maybe, or a leader maybe. So look at the brighter side of it. So fine. And the body language, I've already told you, very crucial, very important. No, forget about teacher and student relationship. In other peer group also, in other organizations as well, administrators, for example. So when I was doing my sociology, so we were told that there is this term gaze, GAZE. So I hope you know the meaning. So gaze is that the way you actually look at somebody. Now imagine, shouldn't happen, but many of us, most of us have been to a hospital, koi family member bimar hua ya kuch bhi. So what happens when the CMO comes? Does the CMO speaks a lot of things? No, he doesn't do that. What he does is that he'll just come, and give a glance. This is gaze. So authority involved, the knowledge involved, the expertise involved. He will not utter, may not utter a single word. He'll just glance, और उसको 10 problems दिख जाएंगी वहाँ पे. Right? So body language very crucial. And we've seen कुछ बड़े commanding body language से चलते हैं, कुछ घबराए हुए चलते हैं, घबराए हुए चल रहे हैं, तो you know that what exactly will happen. They will be after your life. So very important, building positive relationships. We should not consider that students वो आएंगे जाएंगे पढ़ेंगे और चले जाएंगे, हमें सिर्फ marks चाहिए या output वो वाला चाहिए. No, should continue. Not all students, we cannot do that with all, but some do keep interacting. They are in touch. 5 years they've gone, settled well, but still they ask you if you are good, okay, which means that you have tried to build healthy relationships with the students as well. Because a lot of learning happens from the other side as well. It is not just the teacher is actually sharing his thoughts, knowledge, learning with the student, but from that there also. Because I mentioned generation gap. So lot of the things I also learned that what exactly is happening out there in the organizations, how the work environment has changed, how the expectations have changed. Fine. So my last point would be that education is all about gaining knowledge. So when I say knowledge, I'm not talking about degrees here. I am not talking about the literacy rate or being illiterate. I'm not talking about that, but I'm talking about being educated, which means that dealing with people, knowing about what our society requires, how we can actually make contributions towards the society. All right. So being the teachers or the educationists, somebody being into the research, we need to be very, open about it and should work towards this particular direction. So I'll end my lecture with this. So thank you so much. If you have any questions, I doubt you have questions. So, but if you have anything to share, forget about the questions, but anything to share, any thought that you did not agree to, anything that you would want to share. And the other participants who have joined us in the online mode, they are also welcome. I hope
Ashish Tiwari is there.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, Ashish Tiwari is a regular student, so I am asking to him, is there any question?
Okay, any question? I hope I didn't bore you.
No, ma'am.
Fine. Fine then. So, ma'am, should I end then? I think there are no questions.
Yes, ma'am. I just want to convey one message to all, ma'am. So, can I start, ma'am?
Yeah, sure, sure.
Yeah, I'm requesting to you all because I already mentioned in the chat box, for getting the certificate, attendance, feedback, and test is required. We will shortly say to all of you your test time. And this test time is half an hour test. And based on if you are getting that 75% marks in your test, then only you will get the certificate. So please convey this message to others also. All the joint student, please convey this message to other online student for our event. And the next session I will take care after the short break. The 15 minutes short break is for the tea break. Then after that I will take lecture. Then what we have done in a visit, this visit report I will present by the Mayak after my lecture. And 3:30 sharp we will start the validatory session. So this validatory session, we will say how many participants they are eligible for getting the certificates. And all of you please try to attend all the today's attendance, because this is the final attendance we have to put in a Atal portal. So 80% is not a very easy task to get the attendance. That's why sincerely I'm requesting you all, please attend remaining sessions. Then definitely you will reach that 80% attendance criteria, and you will get the certificates. And feedback is a compulsory activity in Atal portal. In our Atal participations portal, the one section is there, the feedback. So you have to fill the feedback as a lecture wise. So there were we have conducted the 14 sessions as a theoretical session. So this 14 individually you have to grade each and every speakers what you have learned from them. So please put your sincere that feedback activity in the Atal portal. So thank you all from my side. Thank you so much. Yes, we are going for that break. And please off the recording.